Amon-Ra St. Brown first overall. How are you feeling about that?
I mean, I think it's always, when you're talking about the first round, I think it's always a go out and get your guy.
Come on.
Let's go. Oh, man, my heart was beating on that one.
I can just tell you, when we get down to the actual numbers and projections, that team is going to score a lot. There's a lot of fantasy goodness.
There's 50 feet of shit and then Kyren and everything.
So forget that. I don't want to draft guys on bad teams.
Doesn't matter. They're going to figure out a way to get the ball good offensive coordinator. Arthur Smith is not a good offensive coordinator.
You guys are team 3 and 4. There's no point to take Stroud, right? Is there a point to take Stroud in a best ball format? Welcome in, everybody. Our second FFPC Big Gorilla live draft coverage of the year. I'm your host, Aidan Liquorie. Joining me, as always, Dave Terpoilli. And the 2024 Fantasy Football Writer of the Year. You can find his work at Fantasy Alarm. You can hear him on SiriusXM. Andrew Cooper. Coop, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, dude. After that crazy, awesome intro with Bender and everybody, I was feeling a little left out. So you made me feel better with you.
I'll maybe update it mid-season. I'll update it with current clips.
Well, I got so much pressure to
greatness
say
you bring
something
tonight. You guys,
so much pressure to say something cool, dude.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go.
I
will say this.
You're going to be.
I will say that I love doing these with you guys, especially early, because we get a glimpse. I said it on Twitter earlier. I was like, we get a glimpse at what some very, very, very serious fantasy gamers are doing right now. Big stakes, big dogs. And that is so valuable just to see what kind of things you might be going on. Even if you play in one league, you're going to have people in your leagues that are sharp, that are not sharp, that are willing to do crazy things. So good to get that glimpse, man.
We're already off to kind of an interesting start here. Coop, I'll start with you. Justin Jefferson at the 102. I mean, Howard said it in the intro. It's always go get your guy time in these events. But what do you make of Justin Jefferson over Bijan, over Saquon, even over CeeDee? He's usually been going in that 5 to 7 range. He goes at 2 today.
Yeah, so I'm not doing that, but I will say this. My strategy a lot of times is very similar to Terps. That's why I love talking to him, but I hate playing against him in that I fear Justin Jefferson to the point where I will do a draft where I take him, but I'm a volume drafter. So I know that at some point I'm going to be able to get him at pick 5, 6, 7 and not have to pay that price, right? So it's I will get some to protect myself from the possibility that he's Justin Jefferson and he crushes everybody, but there's too much randomness and uncertainty going on with the change in quarterback, in my opinion, no matter who it is, right? So for me, I love certainty in the early rounds. I want Joe Burrow throwing to Jamar Chase. Later on, we'll lean into uncertainty to try and find some upside, but I'm not taking him at 2, but I feel like you have to get him in your portfolio, right? Terp, you're a big volume guy, so you will get some, even of the guys you don't like in the top couple rounds.
Yeah, the only reason I would move him up, I love Jefferson this year. I'm a fan. I don't hate the pick whatsoever, but the only reason I would move him up to this spot is for roster construction, trying to get a couple guys that are different, in the later rounds that are going in a similar second, third round area to try to mix in to get different, constructions to, make sense with the volume that I'm going to be drafting. I would take Bijan. I would take Barkley over him. I probably would sit him in there right in the 4 slot. I mean, I love Jefferson this year. I'm a big J.J. McCarthy fan, so I'm in no way trashing the pick, but what he said is pretty much perfect. We're going to get a lot of 4, 5, 6 picks, and he's going to be there. So there's really no point to push him up if you're doing one draft, go get your guy. I don't care if you take Puka at number 2. No disrespect. Go get your guy. You're playing for $1 million. But if you're a volume drafter like we are, I mean, you just try to get the guys, especially early on where they're supposed to be going, and then mix in everybody else that tries to, obviously you have your favorites.
I will say
that's what I like.
Yeah, you go, Coop, please.
I like watching your late summer drafts, Terp, when you're at the point where you've got a lot of the builds you already want, and now you're doing those weird ones where you got to cover your bases, you got to get those guys that
you got to get guys that you never draft, or I always have one draft where I literally draft nobody that I ever draft during the season, just to have that outlier that could maybe if I'm wrong on a lot of things, that could potentially pan out and work out. I don't do it that often. I usually stick to my guns when it comes to drafting, but you always got to take a couple guys that are just uncomfortable you don't like, because, if you fade a guy, especially in the first round completely, and I've done it over the years, and it burns you, you are way behind the 8 ball, and you're going to be drawing dead in most leagues.
So, Coop, I got to ask, because chat is popping off. There was actually 2 names. It's almost a kind of flip-flop than ADP, which is Christian McCaffrey at the 107. We've kind of been seeing him rising up draft boards as we get closer and closer to training camp starting, and some positive reports are coming out. But then Brock Bowers, again, Big Gorilla, tight end premium. You usually see Brock Bowers in the top half of the first round. Great value for Team 10 Uncle Sam here at the 110. So your thoughts on McCaffrey rising and Bowers falling in this?
Yeah, and I think people are realizing that with a guy like Christian McCaffrey, everyone understands the outcomes if he's healthy, right? This is a guy capable of 400 PPR points. Like if you take, there's only 4 guys in the league that average 100 yards from scrimmage per game, and there's only one of them that averages 110. That's Christian McCaffrey. The other 3 guys are Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, and Saquon Barkley. Right. So it's like everyone knows that he has like game changing kind of league ruining upside. So you have to sprinkle him in there. And it is getting to the point where if you want him, you have to get him early. So I mean, I'm not taking him first 6, but anytime in that back half, you got to just go for it. You really do. I still would take Genty ahead though. Where do you guys live with that?
I'm McCaffrey over Genty.
I'm taking Genty.
Okay, yeah, because I mean it is close enough, but McCaffrey, I mean, he rules.
I definitely think it's close. I mean, the injury thing with McCaffrey is obviously a big risk, but the schedule is so good.
Right, and the thing with the Bowers and McBride picks is that in typical formats, and I know FFPC is all 10 and premium, right? In the rest of the formats, half PPR, full PPR, standard, a tight end that has been drafted in the first round in the top 12 has never actually finished in the top 12 in the same year. But it has happened in this format. It's happened once with Travis Kelce. And we've had guys finish top 12, even in just regular PPR, guys like Mark Andrews and guys like Gronk and Jimmy Graham, obviously Kelce. So like for me, a pick like Bowers, I have no problem I'm probably taking him after Chase, Jefferson, Lamb. And you could take him as early as 1 or 2, honestly, because this is just a totally different beast. He essentially plays wide receiver. They have an inline tight end in Michael Mayer. And when you go and look at the top 5 all-time seasons for tight ends, it is Travis Kelce playing basically his whole season at slot with another inline tight end. Mark Andrews ran 85% of his routes from a wide receiver spot. That's what Brock Bowers is. And the scariest thing about Bowers, there's 2 scary things. 1, he's getting a better quarterback. 2, he was actually coming off a high ankle sprain tightrope surgery, and the recovery timeline on that has been a long time. Like we watched Tony Pollard took forever to come back from that. Darnell Mooney took a full year. Mark Andrews himself looked terrible last year. Like there's a world where Brock Bowers, was playing the early part of the season, at least not at 100%. So, I mean, again, it's one of those ones where it could just ruin everything.
No, I mean, you don't usually see him fall to 10. And I think really the understated thing, and you mentioned, is just you're going from Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell to Geno Smith. And they didn't add a ton of pass catchers like that. It's like, oh, he's going to siphon targets away from Bowers. It's going to be.
Don't forget about Chip Kelly too. I mean, Chip Kelly's a name that's been trashed in the NFL scenes, but the pace of plays. I mean, he's going to be playing. They're going to be number 1, number 2 every year. And if that offense can hold up, I mean, Bowers is going to get more targets, more opportunities. I'm Brock Bowers over Trey McBride every day. I don't even think it's close, to be honest with you. And I love Trey McBride. I'm not in any way discounting him, but Brock Bowers just.
The interesting question is, what Raider do you want in the first round, Bowers or Genty, Terp?
In this format, Bowers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terp, are you team 4 secretly and you just didn't tell us?
I would never do that. I would never. I'm a big homer when it comes to the Eagles, but I would never do this in a managed league where I have to, start, because I mean, there's just so many range of outcomes. If I'm going to take Saquon Barkley, I'm probably leaving AJ Brown and Devonta Smith alone. I'm not saying they all can't get there, but like when we're talking about trying to win $1 million in a shootout, you're betting on one spot usually. I mean, and of course it could.
It's a huge correlation question, right? Because last year the Eagles had the fewest pass attempts in the league of any team, and it wasn't particularly close. 25, was it 25.7, and there were only 4 teams under 30, right? And your bet on AJ Brown is a regression back towards more passing. Your bet on Saquon Barkley is that it's just more of the same. But taking both is it's almost like you're betting Devonta Smith is going to get hurt or something. It's just the core. There is to some
and if
degree.
Devonta Smith gets hurt, it doesn't really. It's going to hurt AJ Brown probably more than anything. It's going to hurt Saquon Barkley more than anything. It could hurt them both, and like it's too many eggs in one basket for me. I mean, I love both players. I will draft both players very happily. But I don't know. I not in the first 2 rounds. If we're talking about like, a little bit less like 7th, 8th round type of situations that we'll talk about later, yeah, that's fine. If you're going to do that, just to try to make a little softer bet on a player. But first 2 round, those guys, and I love them both, but it's not a bet I'm going to make.
Right. And Coop, let's talk about something serious. Dive into it. Saquon Barkley Madden curse. Are we worried about that? It's not great. Terp, are you worried?
I'm definitely worried.
I watched Sean Alexander, my sweet angel, play every game of every season for like 6 years. He scored 100 touchdowns, in like 5 seasons. And
so good.
They put him on the cover of Madden, and a defender falls on his foot, and he breaks his foot. Not even like a wear and tear injury, like a dude fell on his foot, and his career was like over. Like, I know that it's obviously silly, and it's not a real thing, but I think there is maybe, like, if you're somebody who does believe in the wear and tear and the regression type things, like, you look at it and you do say you only get on the cover of Madden by having an exceptional all-time season. And if you're out there having an exceptional all-time high volume season, your odds of potentially decreasing or getting hurt are higher. It's as simple as that. I mean, you look at Tyreek Hill, he went out and tried to go for 2,000 yards, and he was really pushing it and playing through injuries. And the next year he comes out and, he said before the season, he's like, we're not going to do that again because that was too much. I mean, go back to last year and look at Saquon Barkley. Look at Mike Evans. Like, there was no secret that they were not necessarily forcing, but they were doing everything they could to get those records. You know what I mean? Like, they were giving him extra carries. They stopped throwing Saquon Barkley the football because it was a waste of potential record-setting yardage to throw it to him, right? It's like little things like that. But on the flip side, I can't let it affect like the way I'm drafting, because on the other side of it, you have to realize that you could be taking a worse player and then that player gets hurt. And that exact thing happened in these drafts a couple of years ago when people were taking Jonathan Taylor over Christian McCaffrey. People said Christian McCaffrey's going to get hurt. I'll take Taylor. What happened? Taylor got hurt. McCaffrey didn't. So like for me, I'm just going to take best player available and that's it. But you have to keep those narratives in mind when you say, oh yeah, I'll take Barkley 1 because he's going to run for 2,000 yards. That's a special kind of once in a while thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
my exposure to Barkley will be very, very good. I mean, it's not going to be above Bijan. It's not going to be probably above. Yeah, you can't fade him. I mean, the opportunity, the offensive line, the schedule, the defense should be a little worse, which would give more opportunities for him in the passing game, you would think. He's going to be on the field more. The backups behind him are very questionable. Shipley, A.J. Dillon coming off the streets. It's the opportunity that you saw last year is possible to do the exact same season. I have my questions regarding it, but I'm not. If I learned one lesson over the years, if you just straight fade somebody in the first round, you're setting yourself up for total disaster. I'm not saying that I'm going to have, 50%, Saquon Barkley in the top 6 picks, but I'm going to have my exposure. I'm going to have enough to where if he does what he does last year, I'm going to be fine. I don't want to say I'm going to take him in 1 draft out of 100 because that's probably it's a good chance that's going to lead to like doom for me. And I don't try to do that when it comes to the exposure that I get.
And that's I will say, just basing on this guy's team name, I mean, BG364. So just whenever you're listing your team names with the date, like this guy's a volume drafter. So I'm sure that AJ Brown Saquon is an intentional build he's working on.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, dude. Those are the scary guys, right? Like it's not like fantasy stud.
They don't 45. Care.
It's literally like, yeah, exactly. Especially when that number gets up to like BG
like 62. 40. It's like,
those guys.
They don't care whatsoever. They're just probably like sleeping through these.
You're drafting against the Matrix when you get those guys.
Exactly.
All right, guys, let's talk about this end of third round. So I didn't think it would come this early, but RJ Harvey is everyone's favorite player, but a little bit of a jump scare today with J.K. Dobbins is visiting. So Coop, let me start with you. Let's just go fantasy land. J.K. Dobbins signs there. Where does that shift Harvey for you? And even before any possible signing, where are you at on RJ Harvey? Are you as high as RB14, which he's getting steamed up to?
Yeah, so I've been grabbing him a lot early at one point, because the best time to grab guys like that is right after the NFL draft when things open, because people are still stuck in this mindset of like, okay, I have to draft Amarian Hampton first because he was the first round pick and RJ Harvey was the second round pick. So for a long time, Amarian Hampton went before Harvey. Hampton's still going early, but like you got those discounts. We were taking Harvey back when things first opened. He was going after like other guys I like Kenneth Walker and Alvin Kamara, right? So I was still getting him and those guys. I've cooled off a little bit, but I will say this. Not only is that scheme perfect for what he does, but we've seen that scheme produce 2 RB1s before in the past, if everything goes perfect. I'm not saying that it's going to, but I mean, like, if they put J.K. Dobbins in the Mark Ingram role, that doesn't mean that R.J. Harvey in the Alvin Kamara role doesn't get 100 targets or whatever what you consider the upside to be. I will say this. The steam is definitely related to the coaches, because I went back and I looked at Joe Lombardi, right? I pulled up every single team that he's been part of the coaching staff for, which is the offensive coaching staff, which is 18 straight years. In all 18 of those years, the team was top 5 in passes to the running back. All 18, with the Lions and the Saints and the Chargers and both the years with the Broncos. Like, as a group, they've been top 5. I mean, just last year, Javonte Williams was top 5 in running back targets, even though he wasn't that good. So, like, you know what I mean? It's just like an 18-year sample size for me says, you know what? This is what these guys want to do. They took over this team, and they turned over what they could. Obviously, got rid of the quarterback, got rid of McManus, got rid of Jerry Jeudy. They turned over what they don't need, and now they're going after what they do need. They want, the Evan Engram Joker tight end. They want their version of Alvin Kamara. They go get this guy who's a converted quarterback, who obviously has the smarts, has the explosiveness, can catch the ball. It's like, at that point, you do have to acknowledge that this kid could be Alvin Kamara. I mean, it's or he could, Austin Eckler, like the Reggie Bush, the names that come out of these schemes catching a ton of balls. You have to fear, even if you don't love it, you do have to fear it.
Is 312 and a price point on RJ Harvey you're comfortable with? And it's only going to go up, especially if they don't sign anyone. I mean,
what I'm hoping is it goes down. I'm hoping J.K. Dobbins scares people and it moves them down. I haven't been the biggest RJ Harvey supporter so far because he's so expensive. And there's a lot of range of outcomes that could lead to, a good fantasy season, but not paying off his 4th round value. So I'm hoping the Dobbins move brings him down. I'll get more exposure because if Dobbins doesn't sign there, by the time we draft in Vegas, RJ Harvey could be creeping up to Kyren Williams, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown range because the hype will be out of control. And I'm not sitting here saying it's going to happen, but usually when guys get hyped up that much, it doesn't pan out because it's hard, especially in these contests, because this started a long time ago. And people got RJ Harvey at some just crazy numbers.
Yeah, in the chat, 17th, 18th round. And
17th, 18th round. I mean, you're sitting here saying I'm going to draft him in the 3rd round. I'm not saying he's not worth it or he won't be worth it, but
that's why I'm saying get some exposure now. Like in the 4th, like if he falls to the 4th round, get some exposure now, and then maybe cool off and see what happens. Because you're right, when you think about guys that could be a straight up 0, right, from this group, there's not many of them there without injury, right? But we know Sean Payton is a doghouse coach. He gave Greg Dulcich a chance to be that big slot role last year, threw him 8 targets in week 3, and he dropped 3 of them, and then that dude never played again.
Yeah.
Like, this is nightmares.
Right.
Highest known tight end last year.
Instead of RJ Harvey, we could be saying
nightmares.
CJ Spiller, right? Like that kind of a doesn't get a role or just doesn't produce type way too early pick. So again, it's like you have to out of fear, you cannot have 0 exposure. That's where I feel. I was very pumped on him earlier, but dude, he is like rocket ship. And
right after the draft, I want to say it was a wide range, but you saw mid 5th to like early 7th was kind of the range. And now
I felt great about that.
If Dobbins leaves town and they don't sign him, it's gonna get to a point where it's gonna get a little uncomfortable. I could see him getting up there in a Josh Jacobs range. I don't think it's crazy.
He should have been going
team drafters.
Yeah, he should be going in that Mixon, Kamara, Kenneth Walker range. That's probably what is like healthy for him, and where I would. That's where I was most comfortable. Obviously, I was most comfortable taking him right away when like nobody was thinking about him much. But like that's where I'm now. I have a hard time taking him ahead of those particular guys because I really like those guys too.
And those guys are probably going to stay in that range. You're never going to get enough, unless obviously like Charbonnet gets hurt or some injury happens behind one of the other guys that makes sense. But those guys are going to stay in that range, so you can get them anytime you want. Harvey, if he moves down, you hope he moves down maybe around maybe 2, but he probably doesn't, to get to a point where, all right, he could be the Kamara role, just like you said, and it makes a ton more sense to draft him. Because right now, 3rd round, man, that's rich.
Yeah, can I bring a guy like that's such an underrated part of drafting right now, man, which is like just thinking about who could move up or down now. Just like make a list. And I feel so stupid. A player I didn't get more exposure to so far that I need. I encourage everyone, go out there and get as much exposure as you can right now. Is Rashi Rice, man.
No, that's what I was about to say. I was saying on the last
I'm the host.
I would take him
I'm the host
as a
now.
top receiver. Yeah, he's a top
I'm the host now.
receiver.
Aidan, let me ask you. If I came out to you, let me pose this question to you. If I came out to you and said, hey, wave my magic wand, and any suspension questions went away and any injury questions went away, where would you be taking Rashi Rice?
204.
That's what I'm saying, bro. That's what
I'm taking him above Puka.
Now dude. I mean, it's kind of crazy though. Full PPR, the guy was last year,
record pace
through 3 games, led the league in catches.
Kelsey role. It was Kelsey, but like
he did have like
29 catches.
It's insane what could be if he
full recovery, like MCL.
Worthy still there, and Brown's there, and all that stuff. Kelsey's still there, but if Mahomes had a very subpar season, if he gets back to the old Mahomes and they start chucking the ball a little bit more with a questionable running game, he has in his range of outcomes wide receiver 1.
Right. Rather have Worthy thing. Like the problem I have with Worthy is that he's supposed to be this like field stretcher and this explosive guy, and we didn't get any of that. I mean, like he didn't have any regular season games over 80 yards, did he? I mean, he had the one game, but the one game he really popped was the Super Bowl, but it was like kind of garbage time.
Yeah, garbage time points
for that Super Bowl. And I love Worthy, and I think if there was Rice issues, I think Worthy is going way too low. But the crystal ball says no Rice injuries, and he's 100%. I mean, you can make a case that he's in the first round, easily in the first round. And
and here's why you got to take him now, because now we're seeing him out there. Like today, I saw clips today, and he's not even working out with the rehab guy.
No,
like he's out there.
There was a conversation, right? Like he could be back for like the playoffs, and that would have been forced. But now we're in June, so that's 4 months past when it was like, oh, maybe he could come back.
Right, and now Drew Davenport. Shout out Drew Davenport. Actually, he does a great job. Over at it's the auction. Damn, I want to plug his thing. Somebody in the chat, dude, plug Drew Davenport, his Patreon over there. But he's out there pulling the dockets in Dallas like every week. He's pulling it to see if things are coming up with his criminal case, where he's got some civil stuff going on. But Drew's basically like, look, he's like, if it goes another week, like couple weeks or a month, and there's nothing even coming up, he goes, there's no way this guy's even going to court in 2025. And if he doesn't go to court this year, he obviously can't get suspended this year. So real possibility the dude just plays the entire season. Like
I just think it's insane to me right now that Devontae Adams, Marvin Harrison, JSN, Tyreek, Garrett Wilson, like all those guys are going above him. Like it's just nuts to me. This was on our last show, and me and Mike Shope had a disagreement about it. And out of it, like he was just like, he was hesitant for the reasons that Terp kind of outweighed. Like there's competition for targets there. But I mean, they were like, look at just what he did last year. Like he was, and like, yeah, he's a little bit, I know they call him.
He would have went down on one of the greatest draft picks in fantasy football last year if he would have played every game.
He was, right? He might be.
Everybody was worried about him.
He's a PPR monster.
Yeah, I mean, and he was the best value versus ADP on the season. I mean, like
one of the biggest risks, and people that took him, like Justin Herzig was on him. Like his percentage was crazy compared to the field, and through a couple games, he was ridiculous, on pace to put up
He was
record
wide receiver
season.
2, I think, when he got hurt. Like,
Yeah, he was by like 1 point behind Malik
Yeah.
Neighbors, and Malik Neighbors had 3 touchdowns. Malik Neighbors also got through those first 3 games, he got like 36 targets.
Yeah.
It was like it was nonsense.
It was insane.
And he, despite the crazy target volume, Rice actually caught more passes. I think it was like 24 versus 23.
Dude,
Like
Rice is so good. He's just an idiot off the field. But
dude,
no.
the thing is, being that like I feel like being an idiot is part of being like just being a sicko, crazy
Great receiver.
Like Tyreek Hill, there's nothing else in his brain except touchdown.
I need Rashi Rice to start cryptically tweeting, and that will really fire me up.
That
is the greatest tweet in like football Twitter history. Is the one where it was like quarterbacks are like great game. It's like like we played running backs are like I'm gonna keep working harder, like, and then receivers are like my enemy stares me down in the valley of death, and I defeat them. It's just so
talks
funny.
quietly and holds a knife. That was Denny Carter. Shout out Denny Carter. That was
the greatest tweet. Never fails, and it pops up anytime a receiver tweets something stupid. Dave and Coop, question for you from the chat. Chuba Hubbard at the 507. Dave, the question was actually directed your way, so I'm going to start with you. Your thoughts on Chuba Hubbard and his value, nearly a top 20 running back 21, 507.
He's one of the most perfect targets if you're going heavy wide receiver, mixing a tight end or quarterback in the first couple rounds. Dave Canales we've seen it over the years. You saw Chuba Hubbard last year, again, one of the best draft picks of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much was free in drafts all season. Never really got steamed up no matter what. He even went to Jonathan Brooks, injuries and all that stuff. He was the hot name. He was the sexy name. And Hubbard was just great. The goal line carries, everything you love in a running back in the 5th round who easily has top 12 value. It's hard not to love him. It's hard not to be excited about him. Like, you look at the guys that are going around him, the sexy rookies, James Conner. To me, it's just he doesn't look like a sexy pick, but he is a guy that if you're starting off, receiver, tight end, receiver, I would love to have him as my running back 1.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, just last year, it was one of those things where it's like, thank goodness for Coach Speak Index doing what he does. It's a terrible job. But like
one of the best follows on Twitter.
Yeah, he has a thankless job trying to figure out what the heck these guys are saying. But like last year, they were like, dude, we love this guy. Everyone's asking them about Jonathan Brooks, and he's like, hey, don't forget about this guy. This guy shows up every day and outworks everybody. He's working his ass off and he's doing everything. And then you also got to look at the dichotomies of how these guys are treated, right? Like you look at Rico Dowdle at 1,000 yards, and the Cowboys said no, thank you. Chuba Hubbard was playing so well, they gave him an extension mid-season and said, we want you around. Like, you're our guy. We love you, So, like, I'm locked in there. I was drafting some James Conner early. I do like a lot of other guys going this range a little better, but I'm starting to get a little scared, man. Just watching the interviews with Trey Benson.
Yeah.
He sounds like, and again, guys are always going to say, yeah, I'm going to do more this year, this and that. But the way he talks, I'm going to put on my Coach Speak hat for a second. He sounds like a guy who's been told that he's going to get the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Right, where it's like
he's damn good at Florida State. Dude was a damn good football player.
Damn good.
Was.
Yeah, the interview was so funny actually in relation to Florida State because as part of the interview, he was talking about his friendship with Jared Verse.
Yeah,
and he's like, yeah, Verse got me last year. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Today. Yeah,
you saw that clip, right? And it's so funny because he's like, he got me. He's like, he sends that video to the group chat. Like he's probably got to have it on his wall somewhere.
He seems motivated, which is always a good sign for a guy who really hasn't done much in his career.
Yeah,
and James Conner. All the respect to him, but
he's gonna miss games. He's gonna
miss games, and if things go a little haywire, and he misses more games than expected. I mean,
he's missed at least a game every year of his career. He made it to the very end last year, and then before missing games. But like,
it's kind of baked into his price, though, which is why I think Coop, you were saying you feel comfortable taking him in at like 5-6 turn because
he's one of the last few I like where it's like I feel like he's gonna be the primary back.
Okay.
Right.
We'll come back to that when the running backs. I want to hear where that cutoff is for you. I'm intrigued. Coop, I want to ask you in draft rooms. A couple of people were kind of mentioning it in the chat. So I'm trying to figure out how to best phrase this, but it's almost kind of like a throwback year. The running backs are going heavy early and often. Are you feeling that way? Like I know every year is different. Like a couple of years ago, right? Quarterbacks were steaming up. This feels like a year in which everything is kind of even. Like there's no one position being hammered or other. I wonder if are you feeling that way in the draft rooms? Like are you liking these boards? Because every draft me and Terp are doing as we're starting to get into it, it's like I like the look of these boards.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah, because we're kind of old school gamers, dude. I saw Dynasty Coach A in the chat earlier, who I love John. He's great, John Arrington. He was like, "Bring me back to 2002."
Yeah.
Yeah, like, but
The good times.
start bringing back the good old days, right? Where it's like Priest Holm gets 400 carries. If he gets hurt, Larry Johnson gets 400 carries, right? This is my rifle, or a lot like it, but this one's mine. Like, it was so easy. Linear depth charts. Everyone had one starting tight end, one backup tight end. It wasn't like a tight end room, right?
No.
Where it's like rotation. But we are a reactionary bunch, aren't we, with fantasy football?
Yeah.
Like, every year this happens to some degree. Like, I remember it was like 0 RB. And then Alvin Kamara scores 6 touchdowns in the championship week. And everyone's like, did I say I meant hero RB? Right. Like, and then all of a sudden now it's like, oh, well, you get the one guy and then you go back to doing this. Like, so last year we just haven't, a year where everything lined up perfectly for a lot of the running backs. We had a lot more healthy guys coming
healthy. That's really what it came down to. It came down to health. Like,
yeah. And big guys also getting hurt. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so it was kind of
Montgomery missing time for Gibbs. I mean, Bijan, Algier never really, outside of early in the season, never really materialized. Barkley being perfect all season.
Prior to that Thursday, like, Barkley was, you could get him between that 11 to 14 range, and that was a killer pick. Like, he probably had the most, maybe one of the biggest returns on value, and he was a top 15 pick, but he was just that good.
Right. There was a pocket. There was a period there, and this is why you got to draft consistently throughout the summer, right? Because there was a pocket there that was, because so many people are like, oh, I'll just draft. I'm not going to start drafting till July. It's like you could miss the window where like people are just getting like the absolute like, nuts straight flush. I remember last year there was a pocket where Jamar Chase's holdout had hit.
Yeah,
he hadn't got steamed up, and people were starting their drafts Chase Barkley. And like, it takes a lot to screw that team up. You know what I mean? Like, and then of course Chase went back up and Barkley started coming up, and then you can't do that again, right? There was
I had a BBM team that I drafted last year late. That was Chase, Barkley start, and Bowers.
Right, like there's earlier Rashi Rice going late, RJ Harvey.
Yeah,
that's what it's like. You got to get in. That's why early on, Terp, a big part of what we talked about earlier, where it's like, draft the chalk and also draft your guys. Draft as if like something special, because if you do, the ADPs on the guys you like are going to go up. And then that's where you can circle back and kind of get some stacks you didn't do or get those, get the values on some of the other guys. But like, it's so much harder to say, I'll just get RJ Harvey later if he's cheaper, because, we might be looking at, sitting there and being like, oh, Bitcoin was 20K, but now it's 30K, so I'm not going to buy it. So it's you're
starting to see that in the second round. Like,
I did that last year.
Thomas, St. Brown, guys like that. They're nobody you're talking about right now. They're all quiet names. They're just moving back down the draft boards. And guys, Drake London starting. Ladd McConkey was a Twitter darling of the day yesterday. Everybody's talking about why Ladd McConkey has to get moved up. And these guys who are Brian Thomas is one of my favorite players this year. Liam Cohen, Travis Hunter's there. I get it, but Brian Thomas is a star, and
he's the exact guy I made the mistake on last year, where I was taking Brian Thomas Jr.
I hated Brian Thomas.
Around this time last year, I was taking Brian Thomas Jr. And then he did get a little steam and moved up, like
backed off him
around, and I was like, nope, too expensive now. And I probably would be I'd be a millionaire. But
like, you really think about that, like when you start doing all the drafts that we do, and you're like, I love a guy, but like, we'll use RJ Harvey as the example. RJ Harvey, I love him, but I just can't take him in the third round. And he goes nuts, and you're just like, well, if I would have taken him over the third round or some stiff that I drafted, it barely did anything. Like, what could my week to week, and could I have had a chance at this, and could I have had a chance at that, or league championship,
the what if game in fantasy football is one we all play.
I don't play that game.
I just got goosebumps because I'm doing it live on the show right now. I said that I already have some RJ Harvey, so I don't need more. I need to go out and get more.
Trying to set yourself up for it.
Just to stop.
You love the player, but like the price, like, nah, all these guys are steaming him up. Dobbins walks out of town. He's gonna get steamed up a couple more picks. I'm good. And then he goes out and has a monster season under Sean Payton, and you're like, shit.
Could happen. Yeah, that's why it's like, it's so hard to play those value games, but the more you do it early with guys you like, I feel like the more comfortable you are, because if the guy's price drops, then you can still get more, but you can't ever go back and get the old prices.
Guys, I want to bring your attention because people in the chat are talking. I clicked here on the wrong team. Of course, I can't get it off now.
Actually, that team you clicked on, I actually honestly.
Well, we can talk about them. I was trying to click on Team 6 because I was going to go talk about them earlier, and then we had some good discussions. But it's hard
he asked me to be nice tonight about his team, so I'm gonna be,
Is this Sean? Is this Sean's team?
It is Sean. Yeah.
Well, I was about to say I didn't even know that till you said that, but I was saying it's hard for me. Like 3 running back builds, it's just a personal preference, like to start and essentially the hero running back.
It's a sexy.
But if you're gonna do it, these are the 3 running backs to get me going and get me fired up.
And Josh Allen, like the receivers, they're okay. They're not like, I like Jawan Jennings out of the 3, probably the most. I like Judy if Flacco's the quarterback. But that's a little bit of an unknown at this point, with the Cleveland Brown situation. Sutton, he's good. Does he excite me? Like gets me? No, he doesn't. But the top 4 picks, I'm good with. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you can't really pick a better 3 all in.
But this also goes back to what we're discussing. Like if Sean can nail some of these upside receivers, younger ones, and hit on those, this team, and he kind of has old reliable in Cortland Sutton, and maybe Judy kind of replicates his second half. This team's looking great because he has his anchor running backs, and not only that, they're like great running backs. All these guys are game changing, especially A-Chain and Gibbs.
Right, and with a team with what he's done here, because like. A-Chain and Gibbs obviously crazy explosive, but Chase Brown, just by the nature of that job, could score 20 touchdowns. You know what I mean? It's because I've watched bad running backs score 18 touchdowns. I watched LeGarrette Blount score 18 touchdowns. Is that because he's incredible? In a season, he only caught 7 passes. He scored 18 touchdowns because his quarterback was Tom Brady. I watched Jamal Williams score 18 touchdowns. I watched Raheem Mostert score 100. It's literally,
it was ridiculous. That Raheem Mostert season was an all-time.
So it's like being the starting running back for Joe Burrow in itself could just lead, because every time there's a pass interference in the end zone, that's a touchdown, right? Every time you get to the 3-yard line, Burrow is not taking it. It's crazy.
And I think they get him involved in the receiving game even more than they did last year. I thought he would be more of a receiving option for them than he ended up being, but I think that's going to keep developing.
What I want to see this team do is what you alluded to, Aidan, is like get aggressive now at wide receiver, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to see, I wouldn't be drafting once you have guys that you can just comfortably start, but aren't going to Jawan Jennings, I guess could Jawan Jennings was on, with the first few games last year was a top dog too, but you don't want to keep loading up on just kind of
guys,
floor guys, right? You don't want if your next 2 picks are like Khalil Shakir and Jacoby Myers, now you're not giving yourself enough shot at upside. It looks like Myers,
a player like Matthew Golden, who
go for broke,
go for broke, and take these guys at high upside. I'm not sitting here saying whether you're a Golden fan or not doesn't matter, but this team you're drafting a little safe at receiver right now.
Which is
now fun. You got to start opening it up to where it's like the Trey Harris of the world down the road, guys that could, whether you believe in them or not, draft upside,
draft opportunity. That's what you're drafting now.
Same thing with tight end too.
Yeah, draft opportunity. Don't worry about the floor with your next few picks because you've already got. Not gonna say enough floor, but you need something. You need somebody to really change your fate.
Yeah, you should be drafting a guy like Kyle Williams.
Yeah.
Wait, not yet. I'm not saying now, but the guy that just has.
Yeah. No, but that's what it is. Opportunity. Because that's how you get we've seen very good wide receivers not have the opportunity in their early seasons. CeeDee Lamb was coming off the field for Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper as a rookie. That was a fact. He played 94% of his snaps from the slot. Jackson Smith-Njigba as a rookie was not playing. Chris Godwin for 2 years did not have the role that led to him breaking out. The guys that break out are the guys that have the opportunity. Lad McConkey had the opportunity. Brian Thomas Jr. had the opportunity, right? So, go for those. Kyle Williams could be the wide receiver 1. Trey Harris definitely has opportunity. Go for
send it on Luther Burden. I might as well. That's could be a great. I'm not a huge
slot. If he plays the slot, it's a possibility. I mean,
that's Ben Johnson's guy, right? DJ Moore and Rome Odunze were not drafted for Ben Johnson. They were under polls, but Luther Burden was.
You just mentioned a name that I'm very surprised that has not been steamed up. Who's a guy that I like. I know he has. Last year I was not on him. Everybody was on Rome Odunze.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see, Coop, what your take is on him this year. Are you worried that he's not going to be playing the slot, which obviously is the best position in Ben Johnson's offense? Are you worried about it's going to be DJ Moore? I mean, the rookie season, we all knew the offensive coordinator last year was a disaster. The whole coaching staff was a disaster. Everybody knew that going in, but they still bought into the talent of Odunze. Are you buying into him this year? And why don't you think he's getting moved up a little bit?
Yeah, so this is a guy that I've actually done extensive research on. You go to type in Fantasy Alarm, Rome Odunze, an article comes up where I sat down, I went through all the stats, pulled up every site, Pro Football Focus, Fantasy Points Data Suite, FTN, Player Profiler, Fantasy Alarm, you name it. And then I watched all of his routes, every single route. Pulled up the NFL Pro, watched them all. And I even clipped the important clips and I turned them into GIFs for you, Terp. So you can enjoy the article because there's a little GIFs.
Oh yeah, right? Hell yeah.
So here's my read on it. The stats are kind of fugazi, man. Like people are pulling up these stats and they're showing them about his inefficiency and the air yards and all these things. A huge chunk of those passes were completely uncatchable. Right. I think if you take away like the complete uncatchable throwaways, of which there were a lot, this guy had like a 91% catch rate. He also had a good number of contested catches that were really impressive. But it does boil down to what Terp said. Does the role change in a meaningful way? Because they were using him as the third man field stretcher. Literally like KJ Hamler is the way they were using him. Just like you run down there and take two defenders with you. That also crushes your separation stats when you're the guy that's drawing coverage, right? It crushes it really crushes your catch rate, your separation stats, everything. So the stats were never going to be good, but they probably are going to change his role. They're probably going to keep him in kind of the deeper role just because of the nature of the guys they have. The question is, the way I look at it, if you like Jamison Williams, you should like Roman Dunze because that's the kind of role he's going to be in. And I think he can be an every down top 2 target this year. Whereas last year they had DJ Moore catching 1 million screens. They had Keenan Allen underneath. He was the third target. He was coming off the field for 2 wide receiver sets. So he's going to be better than he was last year. It's just, I don't think he's going to just get that Amon-Ra St. Brown role, which, I mean, if that were the case, if they came out today and said, this guy's playing the Amon-Ra St. Brown role, then his value would jump like 4 rounds.
Do you think that DJ Moore is going to play that role?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think he just has that. When you do look at like his body of work, last year he had like 32 catches behind or at the line of scrimmage, like was kind of not necessarily a screen merchant because he was getting all types of targets, but he was operating closer to the line of scrimmage than a lot of people think. I think he probably will be in that role. And if he's not, then it'll be Luther Burden. That team is so weird now because Colston Loveland also is supposed to be like a big slot, and
So hearing that real quick, Terp, if you are going to go on the assumption that Moore's playing the Amon-Ra, I mean, wide receiver 22 at the end of the 4th round, that's probably sensational value then, right?
I mean, I hate to say it because I like it. He is one of those guys that I look at and I'm like, I don't love, but you have to get some exposure to him because like we've seen him have monster seasons with Justin Fields. Last year, his usage, the reason he didn't crack 1,000 yards was entirely tied to like the insane number of super low ADOT looks he was getting, but they really did do as best as you could to improve the offensive line through free agency. I believe, right? I think they had the best offensive line free agency of any team.
They got the best tight end in the draft.
They had a really good offseason. But you don't get awards for winning the offseason. I want to ask real quick about also one thing. I want to go back to our discussion about Sean Green's team 6. Would you guys, I just want your opinion. I'm looking at this team. Would you have taken a guy like instead of a Jerry Jeudy Terp? Would you have maybe sent it on an Evan Ingram or Mark Andrews? Or are you comfortable just hammering receiver there? Or would you have maybe taken one of those kind of mid-round dead zone tight ends?
First of all, there's no such thing as a mid-round dead tight end this year. There's a lot of good tight ends late. And I know Coop's on the same category.
The tight end whisperer.
Evan Ingram. We are Evan Ingram stands, and I will stand on the
Hit him, Terp. Hit him, Terp.
Evan Ingram's a guy that absolutely last year steamed up, blew up in all our faces. We all thought he was going to have the perfect opportunity. We get that. It didn't work out. It happens. He got hurt, and the offense just didn't work out. But Evan Ingram this year, where he's getting drafted, extremely sexy. I mean, not much behind him. You know, we talked about Brock Bowers. I've said in the last show we did, a couple shows that we've done so far, I will take Brock Bowers early. I probably won't have much Trey McBride, and not because I don't like Trey McBride, it's because I like some of the other receivers and running backs that are going around him. Because to me, the tight end position is so deep this year with so many guys who could easily, you know, we've talked about this on shows we've had them on. We try to find the top 2 target guys on each show. On each team, Evan Ingram can easily be in the range of outcomes the number 1 guy on that team. You could paint a picture that he's the guy if he stays healthy. Over Cortland Sutton, over Marvin Mims, and all those other guys they have there that are all kind of the same. So I'll take a shot with a guy like that at a discount that, you know, the Mark Andrews of the world, you know, everybody knows Isaiah Likely's still there. That's annoying. That's probably going to mix up but he's that good. Andrews is that good. Don't care. You know, Jonnu Smith, another guy that, like, hey, if he stays in Miami, if he goes to Pittsburgh, I'm out. I don't care what happens. I'm out. Arthur Smith and 2 tight ends that are good, I'm out. Yeah, Njoku, hated in fantasy drafts. 8th round Njoku. Why can't he be the number 1 in fantasy position, you know, on the whole team?
Right.
He was all last year. He was a monster. He was on so many of my teams, monster. You know, we talk about the rookie tight ends, same thing. Loveland, Warren, like, if Anthony Richardson's not the quarterback and Daniel Jones is the quarterback, that's great. I'm not saying it's great. That's a bad word to say. It's good for pass catchers. Guys like Josh Downs, guys like Pittman, guys like Warren. Daniel Jones is a better thrower than Anthony Richardson. We all love Anthony Richardson's upside and all that stuff, but, like, we're trying to look at the big picture here. So to me, like, these tight ends, man, your question is, I would take one of those tight ends over Jerry Jeudy. Yes,
it's crazy because, like, Terp, I know you're probably doing the same thing this year. Was like this is the first year in a very long time where I'm drafting back end tight end ones. Like, it's changing the way that my drafts go, because for a long time it was like, if one of the top guys falls, I'll take him. If not, we're going to wait and probably take 2 or sometimes even 3 and just kind of piece it together with the moves we've been doing that have been helping us kind of get an edge. That's always been our edge. But this year, it's like they're being left on the table. It is crazy. Like Mark Andrews last year, like, I do believe that the high ankle sprain tightrope was a problem. I think that the car accident in the beginning of the year was a problem. The guy went out and caught 11 touchdowns in 12 games or whatever it was to end the season, which you can't bank on touchdowns, but if you're going to with anybody, it's this guy. And he seems motivated this offseason to come back and make up for the drop and everything last year. So guy like that, like Travis Kelce going outside the top 100 picks at times, not on here on tight end premium, but sometimes on the other ones. But like Kelce, Andrews, Ingram, the existence of those guys makes me not even like, I do like Kittle, but like I'm never taking Laporta or Hawkinson just because of these other guys. I really worry about Hawkinson. So I mean, I'm just fully in on it. And the great thing with Ingram is the bias against him, right? The bias against Ingram in that
his value will never move because of that. People are all they go by last year. What happened last year? He was disaster.
People in their mind, they can't get past this guy got released, so he must not be good. But they don't realize that Liam Cohen used a very specific scheme that came over from the Rams that he brought to the Buccaneers that uses 3 wide receiver sets in one inline 2-way tight end. And it takes your best wide receiver, if possible, and puts him in the slot with like, Chris Godwin or Cooper Kupp. And when you have
Wan'Dale Robinson love for his time at Kentucky, come on now.
You Wan'Dale Robinson, dude. I mean, if he could just learn how to run block, maybe he could play some more snaps. But you're right. Let's take it all the way back. But no, you're right though. And the thing is, when you have that job, you can't have a big slot tight end because it clogs up the job that is going to someone else, right? So that's why they immediately got rid of Christian Kirk. They immediately got rid of Evan Ingram. I do love Liam Cohen and James Gladstone, and I love the fact that they know their scheme and they're getting rid of those guys. And people are like, "Oh, if they're good, then why don't they build the scheme around them?" It's like you would never say that about a defensive coach that runs a 3-4 that joins a team that runs a 4-3. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're switching it over. They're switching over the personnel. So like the fact that they let go of Evan Ingram and he landed in the best possible landing spot there is, better than
literally the best.
Literally the best.
Draw it up any bet. Chargers, like, you can make it.
Maybe Chargers, but it's Denver.
Chargers for sure. Because I mean, like, because of Greg Roman, right? Like he orchestrated the Mark Andrews season with the 85% route participation. I really wanted to see them do something. A Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland. I mean, that would have been so perfect. Dude. And that was really disappointing.
Tyler Conklin's not a scrub. He's a guy that's free in drafts. I'm not sitting here saying I'm not plugging him.
Every stream, what is he paying you?
And you're right, but you're not, but you're not wrong, Terp. That's the thing. You're not wrong. We just wish it was somebody else. We wish it was somebody else.
Anybody else, literally.
Really anybody.
One of my favorite guys. He's way off the radar and nobody talks about him anymore. But I would love to see him actually get. He got hurt last year, earlier this season. Brevin Jordan. I would love to see him just be something healthy in an offense. Just watch him like evolve.
I wish they just kept Stone smart, dude. You know, like
that's another
Rondé Gadsden.
Rondé
Gadsden, right? What
an athletic tight end who's not a plugger. Like, you know, we know Tyler Conklin's. I'm not saying he's a scrub, but he's just what he is.
That said, if they're gonna give him the job, we have to consider the possibility.
100%. You do.
That's all.
Team 10 was getting a lot of love in the chat. Obviously, we already talked about their Brock Bowers, Rashi Rice pick. But then through round 8, I was kind of thinking that this is the best team in the draft. And besides, as we're always been here, besides maybe Team 4, which has made some wacky picks, very good draft board.
Team 4, we're going to get to them real soon.
Okay. Team 10, really good start. Did not love ETN, although there was some positive praise from Liam Cohen on ETN over the past couple of days. But how much of that is Brandon Aubrey in round 11? How much of that is coach speak? How much is that, like, you know, trying to maybe bump up his value? I don't know. But as people were saying in the chat, probably would have taken Tuden over him. And then, you know, you need running backs and you go with Michael Pittman on a Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson led team. So that kind of dampers my enthusiasm a bit. But Coop, I'll start with you. The first 8 rounds are really good. Are you gonna who do you like? Who do you like?
I like Michael Pittman.
Okay. Wide receiver 50.
Believe it or not, wide receiver 50. Man,
I like him too. If Daniel Jones is the quarterback, if he's not the quarterback, I don't like him.
No, of course not, dude. I mean, that's the game though. But like Josh Downs, like if Anthony Richardson's the quarterback, why do we like Josh Downs? Josh Downs is terrible with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson had a 47.7 completion percentage. I pulled up every quarterback for the last like decade that has thrown 250 or more passes, and there was 630 guys, right? And that was the second worst completion percentage. The worst was Tim Tebow. So like he has to be better. He has to be better or he's going to lose his job. And when I look at Michael Pittman, I mean, this is a guy that plays virtually every snap. I don't see why he wouldn't be the starting split end for this team. He plays like when he's healthy, he plays 95, 98, 99% of the snaps. Last year, he was playing with a broken back. They say that it's completely healed. I'm not, backs are tough, but if his back is fully healed, I'm willing to throw out some of last year. And
he's also free in drafts.
With a broken back, he missed a bunch of games and still got 111 targets. And the years before that, he got 140 and 150 targets. I know they have other weapons there, but when you get down to this part of the draft and you're trying to win a huge prize by having a unique team that has more upside than anybody else, like I'm not drafting again. And I don't want to bash on a couple specific players, but like, why is Jacoby Myers going so much farther ahead of Michael Pittman when like Michael Pittman runs, everything about his profile leads to a higher ceiling, right? So for me, that's a pick I'm willing to make as my wide receiver 5. It looks like his wide receiver 6. 6. Like no problem at all for me. Like, and this team definitely has a lot of picks that I like. I have a hard time pulling the trigger on a Marion Hampton. I know he's super talented. I know the hit rates on guys like with his profile picked where he is at like 90%. I just worry about Najee Harris. It's
going to be annoying. He's going to
be annoying.
He doesn't get hurt.
I'll still have some. It's annoying.
I have to have some. Yeah, it just is
rich. His price is rich right now, and it's not like there's nothing coming out that's like going to scare the price right now. So it's a tough time to draft him. You need like a Najee Harris, like puff piece to come out and say, and Harbaugh coming out saying, "Yeah, Harris going to get plenty of work," and then Hampton will start flying down draft boards, and that's fine. I'll take him then because right now, like you said, you got to write down players that you think that could go one of two ways, and then just start taking them. Hoping you're right, because if Najee Harris comes out and he's Harbaugh comes out and says he's our starter, he's going to get the work, and Hampton's going to get moved in. That means Hampton's value is going to start plummeting, and that makes him way more attractive. Not that I love the talent, he wasn't my favorite running back coming out of the draft, but the opportunity in that offense is there. So you can't just totally avoid him, but his price is rich right now. And you look at some of the guys that are getting drafted above him and around him, I'm not a buyer either right there.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I think the place where I've been getting some shares is best ball. That's kind of what I've been doing.
Of course,
That's where the explosive plays and everything comes back in. And right, it's like if you buy a couple of these, get that second banana, you get a little free best ball, you get your Marion Hampton, right? That's how it works. That's how I love the rebranding. Shout out to the old sponsors, but I love the rebranding of the Big Gorilla. Who picked the name? Can I ask? Does anyone?
It came about because I was like in my role, I'm brainstorming all these different ideas with Alex and Dave, and then Alex and Dave had a call kind of to set the prize structures. They go through all of that every year, and then they're like, we got to address the Big Gorilla in the room. He said, we don't have a name for it. And then they were like, what if we just call it that? And then we built out all, the early Rampage promo, which by the way is, 2 weeks left. You get, if you sign up by June 15th, draft by June 30th, you're entered into an exclusive, free of charge, an extra $25,000 contest just on top of the Big Gorilla, and then the 7 bananas. So it was fun.
So cool, dude. So it was you. It was basically you.
Kind of. It was me.
I'm giving you all the credit in the world for that.
Alex and Dave came up with the name, and then the three of us, and really the whole team came together, and we kind of all worked through all these different possibilities.
I was so fired. I love it, dude. I was so fired up about it. I wore my Savannah Banana shirt.
There we go. I love that. I didn't even notice that.
Let's go, dude.
But speaking of Coop, you did mention, if you get 2 7 picks in a row, you get the free best ball team. Speaking of best ball drafts, Terp, you're on tomorrow with Theo Greminger, Eric Balkman on FFPC Insider Access. You guys are covering a best ball tournament, right? 7:30 p.m.
7:30 p.m.
Are you drafting?
Theo will be drafting. I am not drafting it. Theo will be drafting. I'm just going to be there. Tell him when his picks are so terrible. There is a slight chance I might drive with Theo, but we'll see. We'll see how tomorrow goes.
Real quick, Coop, question for you in the chat from a bit ago, and I'm just getting to it. But it was in that 8th round, back-to-back picks, Tyrone Tracy or Cam Scadaboo is the question for you.
Great question. Great question.
Tough one.
I think that the cop-out answer is neither, but there are things I saw from Tyrone Tracy, and again, I'm not a film guy. Like, I really do lean into the spreadsheets and the narratives, but I did actually enjoy watching Tyrone Tracy play. I'm not saying that he's these guys, but he does have some interesting contact balance ability that you do see from guys like Eckler and Kamara. And obviously, it's kind of a meme at this point, the converted wide receiver, but I think this guy does have pretty serious pass catching chops, man. So for me, out of those two guys, I'm going with him. I do worry with Cam Scadaboo that he might just be your classic, like, college hero, that he was just like, in college, you can run people over. In college, you can be Tim Tebow and run people over. But at this next level, you need to be like special and unique. And I do worry a little bit that maybe he's just not really super special or unique and might just be a guy. So again, I don't know. I'm not like loading up on pieces of that offense because I don't expect the Giants to be like a preeminent rush attack. But if I had to pick one of the two, I do like Tracy better. I do.
Did you guys see that video of Scadaboo on the same?
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
He just didn't know like a single NFL player.
I'm sorry, it's embarrassing.
How is that possible?
Went to Arizona State. I don't know if talk about guys who I think football is not recognizing football players, but probably play concepts and just running people over is the only thing that's going through Cam's.
I heard he also, I'm not sure it was the same video, but I heard he also like went to a card show and pulled a Tom Brady autograph card, and somebody walked up and was like, "I'll give you $3,000 for it," and he was like, "Yeah," and I just sold it on the spot. Dude, 1 of 5. It was 1 of 5.
Oh my god.
He's gonna be. I could see him becoming, and it's kind of what you're saying. Like, not just a guy. Like, he's not great and Tracy's main guy, but like a cult hero. Like, just cult hero in New York. He's gonna.
He looks like he's from New Jersey, dude. Right? Yeah. Like, he was wearing he's wearing like a Michael Strahan jersey that's like one of those ones. Like the kind of like off. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not necessarily like a camo jersey, but of that ilk. And I could just see it. I'm like, this dude is kind of a giant guy. But
I've seen photos of him like out in like Jersey, like Seaside, just looking blasted out of his mind, just throwing the peace sign up, just like, this guy rocks.
That rules, dude. Yeah, dude, just those dudes rock picks. I do love that, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm super sold on it, man. I can't go crazy. I will say, dude, the team that I like so far, if I can interject,
please.
Is, one of the teams that's made a lot of picks that I would make is Team 5.
Okay. Yeah, we wanted to get back to them. I'll highlight them real quick. But please explain kind of. Oh, that's way too much. Explain. Detachable Penix is their team name. Elite name.
See, dude, I knew I liked this guy. CeeDee Lamb is a pick that's just very easy to make, right? He's going to be playing big. He's going to continue to play his slot flanker role. They went and basically got a split end, like their version of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase is now George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. So I love that. Josh Jacobs, I mean, like the guy was an absolute superstar last year in terms of volume and was a big part. If you were in big tournaments, I mean, like a big part of a lot of the teams that made it deep. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a player that I do believe in the talent. The question now is about whether Kyler Murray can take that next step where he's actually getting through his reads. Last year, Kyler Murray was a top 3. Everyone knows that Kyler Murray scrambles around, but what they might not realize, he was also top 3 quarterback in getting the ball out of his hands in under 2 seconds. That's according to Fantasy Points Data Suite. Shout out Theo Grammager, who's going to be on here tomorrow. But like he was either throwing it very quickly or he was scrambling away. And when I watched all the routes on Marv, I did the same thing with a Doomsday. He was getting open. I mean, if you go to Player Profiler, top 10 in route wins, top 3 in route win percentage versus man. Again, it's if you like Kyler, then you're in. If you don't, then you're out. Alvin Kamara is a guy that is just continuously underdrafted year after year after year.
You're his biggest fan. I don't think there's anybody else on the internet that is a bigger fan than Alvin Kamara.
I've been caping up. Well, he keeps making me money. I mean, last year he got hurt, but last year through 6 weeks he was the RB1, and through 12 weeks he was the RB2 behind only Derrick Henry. So, and then it's just like
wheels fell off.
What are we doing? What are we doing? It's like the guy is just good, and he plays in a way that that it doesn't matter if the team's good or not, because he never, you don't need the rushing yards and touchdowns. So I'm in on that. Travis Hunter is a pick I'm not really making that much, but that's one of those picks, fear picks, like the FOMO picks. Like you have to have some, because what if this guy is just as advertised? If James Gladwell, because again, Les Snead is kind of like the guy right now for GMs, right? Or Howie Roseman, fine. Howie Roseman is, but Les Snead is like one of the guys.
That's a protege,
right? Yeah, star. And the first guy to leave Les Snead's crew is Brad Holmes, who's a back-to-back executive of the year. So, like, if James Gladstone leaves that room and says, the first thing I'm going to do is trade everything for this guy, you got to respect the possibility that guy is just a real sicko. So, like, you got to have some Travis Hunter. Aaron Jones, again, in this range, we'll circle back to your question earlier. Like, sure, they have Jordan Mason. He could go out and do some stuff. I know they did want to split the backfield a little bit, but, like, people don't realize that last year Justin Jefferson had the second most receiving yards of any player. Aaron Jones had more yards from scrimmage than him on the Vikings. Aaron Jones led the team in yards from scrimmage. Aaron Jones is very good. After that, he's doing the things that I like, going after guys that have unique upside. Calvin Ridley is a 110, 120, 130 target guy, almost certainly, and he's got Cam Ward. The issues people have with Cam Ward is that he's inaccurate or that he plays hero ball. That sounds great for a wide receiver. Calvin Ridley. That sounds perfect.
For the way he plays.
Right. If Cam Ward comes out and he's Ryan Fitzpatrick or Jameis Winston or Jay Cutler, right? Like, the fans are going to be pissed, but as fantasy gamers, like,
love it.
That sounds great. So, like, I'm in on that. Stephon Diggs, not just like Rashi Rice, but like when you look at the Stephon Diggs situation, they came out and the contract they signed for this dude is the contract you only sign if you think your guy's healthy. Mm-hmm. First of all, if he doesn't pass his physical, the entire contract's void. Second of all, there's so much tied to incentives that if he misses even like 2 or 3 games, it will cost him millions of dollars. We're talking $3.4 million in game checks alone. Every game he misses costs him $200,000. If he's got all these incentives, over $4 million in incentives that are tied to season long. Like, he needs 1,000 yards or more. Like, if he misses 3 games, he'll literally lose $8 million and probably have to fire his agent. And this guy's out there already. Again, no knee brace, looking good. So, like,
it does look good.
Looks good, man. Jaden Reed, I'm not really taking. This is where he kind of lost me a little bit. I do like the Drake May pick, but like, I'm not really taking too much Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed does have unique upside if they give him a full-time role for once, but I'm not sure if they will. If they do, he could be this year's JSN or or CeeDee Lamb though. Then maybe not CeeDee Lamb, but he could be this year's JSN if he were to ever get a real full-time role. And then Kyle Pitts and Dallas Goedert's a guy I'm not really taking. Terp, are you ever taking Goddard?
Never.
He's
There's
just
never a path. It's just not a
Never a
path. I like
Yeah.
the talent, but like it's just not a path. Like
You just need to bet on injuries to Brown and Smith.
you're betting on injuries. We always talk about the top 2 carded guys. It's just never a path. Like I could see a path if one of those guys got hurt to Jahan Dotson. It's more targets.
Exactly.
There's
It's like
no range of outcome where Dallas Goedert will be on any team that I own. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I won't take him once or twice here and there on the volume standpoint, but like Kyle Pitts,
you're
much different.
In something like this, man, where like making the playoffs and the playoffs matter so much. Like you not only need someone to get hurt, but they need to be hurt for the very specific period you need them to be hurt for.
Yeah,
that's the problem you run into. Like a guy like Kate Otten, like same thing. It's like you need the guy to go down and be done for the year because if he comes back during playoffs, you need a different tight end. I hate that.
Yep.
I love their Darquez Hunter pick though.
Yeah, that
pick. He's going to keep rising.
Like the Drake May pick too. No disrespect on that pick either.
12, 13 round.
If you're waiting, Drake May has the rushing upside. I have my doubts on the New England offense, but the schedule is also very, very good. They play a lot of very suspect teams, and if Drake May takes that next step, like most people, I think he's an extremely good quarterback. Hopefully, he'll have a little more structure this year than he did have last year. And if you're going to wait on a quarterback, you can do way, way, way worse than Drake May.
I mean,
with Diggs. If that works out, I mean, you're talking about 2 guys you got 8th round plus that could, turn 4 or 5 rounds of value.
If only we had a resident Boston sports fan on the show to hype up the Patriots and tell us about their offense.
I will tell you though, I mean, like I do believe in Josh McDaniel. I think that he does a good job. The one thing for fantasy drafts that, and you mentioned the name earlier, is that when you go through the depth chart, I do it for fantasy football purposes, not for real life. For real life, it makes me sad. But I do like going through the depth chart and being like, there are, 10 pass catchers on this team. 7 of them, I have no interest in ever drafting. Like, I'm never going to draft Mac Hollins or Austin Hooper or, honestly, Demario Douglas. Javon Baker, Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk is the saddest Patriots fan story. They hired Tyler Hughes, the wide receiver coach from Washington. Then they took Jalen Polk from Washington, and they've already fired Tyler Hughes. And this guy couldn't even get on the field when he knew the guy that decides what wide receivers play. He knew that man personally, and he had 87 receiving yards. So, like, I mean, where's the hope now?
One of the biggest busts that got steamed up last year, probably.
Baker too. Like both those rookie Pats receivers were guys people.
I was on the Javon Baker late. I mean, it didn't cost me anything.
16th round, but still, like there was like I legitimately thought one of them would pan out and be like a weapon. And
the thought process was there. The thought process was there, and then Hunter Henry led with 97 targets. So it's Diggs, it's Henry, and it's Kyle Williams, and it makes it so easy to backstack on or kind of. Like he did with Diggs, kind of cheap stack with Drake May if you want to go that way, because like it's the hard part I run into is that when you take Kyle Williams or Drake May, you almost kind of like stir the beast and remind people that they're there. Like I find like when I take one of them, somebody turns around and they go, I got to take the other. Like Patriots, so like. But if you can stack those guys up, man, I feel pretty good about it. And the just to wrap on the Jarquez Hunter pick, I mean, like these are the guys we trust to find the late round breakouts. They found Kyren Williams. I mean, why can't they do it again? I know the problem is that like we didn't really see Blake Corum because he played one game and broke his arm, right? So like,
but Sean McVay never talked about Blake Corum like he's already talking about Jarquez Hunter.
True. We'll have to see what Coach Speak says.
Yeah.
I mean, Blake Corum was a guy that I was on a ton last year. I was a Kyren Williams hater, and it was a complete and utter disaster. But if they really believed in Blake Corum, why would they draft Jarquez Hunter? It's
and Kyren Williams
exactly.
It's a muddy situation. And it's like I'm going to take one of the Kyren Williams is probably a guy that I'm going to fade again. I'll take a little bit. But
the Blake Corum bet last year was one we've seen pan out the other way so many times, though, right?
100%.
Team takes late round running back looks good, and then they say to themselves, what if like we have the offense, what if we had a better player?
Yeah.
And that's what we saw happen to Tyler Algier. It's what we saw happen to Michael Carter. We saw it happen to Damian Pierce. We saw it happen to, it's just like it's happened a million times. So you had to place that bet at least once that, like,
Philip
what if
Lindsay
Kyren Williams
back in the day?
What was it?
I said Philip Lindsay comes to mind.
Dude, that was the name I was just trying to think of.
Yeah.
No joke. You nailed it, man. It's like Philip Lindsay, multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons, but couldn't pass block. And it's like Kyren Williams graded outside the top, like 100 guys in pass block. So that was a bet last year that, like, isn't a bad bet. It's just one that didn't hit. You know what I mean?
Hey, go back to Team 4. I can't let this go.
Okay.
Please go back to Team 4. I've been last year I said I was going to be nicer. This year I'm not going to be nicer. I'm definitely going to criticize more.
People want to know what we like and what we don't like. I mean, that's the whole point of doing this show.
We're talking about a league where you have to. I always say my famous line is you have to click the button. Every week you have to click the button. Why on earth are you taking Jalen Hurts in the 5th round and then following up Baker Mayfield in the 9th round? So with that bet,
I'll tell you right now why he did it. You know why
he has Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, but
that's why he did it.
So are you going to tell me if you don't click the Jalen Hurts, button, you're going to take AJ Brown out and put Godwin and Evans out? You're going against yourself in every avenue. It's the best ball. If you draft the best ball, fine, I get it. Makes sense.
That was the button. Button. He pressed the wrong button before.
But if you're
before he got in the line,
this is the best
button.
He should have. He tried to press the best ball button.
Sense. Like the worst part about it is I like his picks. I like his players, but I don't know. Like it's just he has 3 running backs on his team right now. He's drafting a ton of receivers. I like Jalen Waddle, like Mike Evans, like AJ Brown. Love Cedric Tillman. As a late round dart throw, guys like that. But like, when is Baker Mayfield going to start for you?
Dude, it's what it is doing that. It's like every week you're giving yourself a headache. Like you already ate a ton of ice cream with Jalen Hurts and you knew you were going to get a brain freeze if you took that extra bite of Baker Mayfield, and he took it anyway. And now every week he's going to sit back and second guess, do I triple stack here or do I go with Jalen Hurts? It's just
you're probably going to be wrong most of the time, and your team is going to be.
It is a good best ball team. If it's
the best ball team, I'm in. Right. You got 2 of the best offenses in football paired with Barkley. You could easily tell the story that where this takes off. The tight ends. If Jonnu Smith doesn't, come to town, Freiermuth looks better. Ferguson, could take the next step with more, with Lamb and Pickens being there to free him up a little bit more. But those quarterbacks, man, in a league where you have to, like I said, you have to click the button every week. It's just It's tough, and it's tough.
That's the thing though, is that like you got to play your early picks as if they're right. You got to play them as if they're right. So when you take the quarterback or tight end early, it's hard. You probably shouldn't double tap. And same thing goes with running back. Like if you're going to take 3 or 4 running backs right from the rip, you got to play it as if you've hit there, because you're either going to give yourself difficult lineup decisions or you're banking on one of your early picks to get hurt, in which case you were already cooked. You know what I mean? Like if you take 5 straight running backs, what are you going to do with them? It's just, you don't have the spots.
Yeah. Question in the chat for us from Bill Hollywood, who also said he loves when Coop's on the show, which I entirely agree with. Yeah. But his question was for us is between from rounds 10 through 12, so that 3-round range, what were your guys' favorite picks? I'll just point out a couple that I love. The Ray Davis, because I do think James Cook had a little bit of a fluky year, contract uncertainty. I think Ray Davis is just a really good football player, and he looked good for them. I think his role is going to expand. And I kind of also want to parlay this into what the chat was talking about a lot, which was Brandon Aiyuk. So I want to hear first Coop, and then I'll go Terp. But Coop, I want to hear your favorite picks from rounds 10 through 12, but then also your kind of thoughts on Brandon Aiyuk, and does he present the value in the 11th round?
Okay, so I'll give you my favorite picks in those rounds. I do like taking Bo Nix and Kyler Murray in that range. Absolutely, if I'm looking for a quarterback. Also, Drake May. I mean, like, those are kind of the 3 guys. You're just giving yourself unique rushing upside. So I have no problems there. I already mentioned Michael Pittman, who I like.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm still taking Dalton Kincaid. I will continue to take Dalton Kincaid. I just feel like they didn't do enough. And I don't even mind the Keon Coleman pick. But the thing about a guy like Khalil Shakir is that what exactly is the true, like, game-breaking upside case for a guy like that? Very low ADOT player, was 3rd most receptions at or behind the line of scrimmage. You know, his year last year, and I know people get very upset when I say this, looked remarkably similar to what you would get from Cole Beasley. In fact, Cole Beasley 2020 was better. It was just a better season. Like, it's just one of those picks that, like, in your hometown PPR league, especially if there's like a ton of flexes, go for it. You'll probably start him every week. But in a league like this, I'm just trying to go for more upside. And I look around and ask myself, like, who could present that? Okay, Dalton Kincaid, always on paper, decent targets per route run, got good hands. Then the rumors are coming out. You know, Matthew Berry's walking around the combine talking to people. They're saying this guy was hurt all year. Then Dawson Knox comes out and says this guy was playing hurt all year. That gives me enough hope to say, and then they brought in Josh Palmer. You know what I mean? They didn't go out and take Ted McMillan or do anything crazy. You know, they didn't sign anybody crazy.
Don't forget about Elijah Moore here. Come on now.
Yeah, he's tearing it up.
Don't forget, dude. Very exciting. Probably the least, probably the lowest yards per route run player I've ever seen get back-to-back 100 target seasons for Elijah Moore. I got to say. Are you an Elijah Moore guy?
I am.
Dude, I've been an Elijah Moore guy since the second season of the Jets.
It's the Jets.
Never have my stocks.
I was part of the highs and the lows.
It's entirely possible.
It's free.
I'll draft it. I'll draft some.
If I'm going to bet on somebody in that, I like Josh Palmer too. If I'm betting on the receivers in that room, I don't love any of them, first of all. But if I were to bet on the ones, I'm going to bet on the cheap guys, Palmer, Moore, that are free in drafts right now compared to, you know, Shakir, like you just talked about. I'll mix in Kincaid. I agree with you there. But it's that receiving room is just ugly. It's this, even with Josh Allen, it's just
our first Big Gorilla.
It looks like a $1, dude. It looks like a $1 orphan team you'd find on this site.
We had Mike Shope, who's literally 20 plus years on Buffalo Sports Radio. Like he's, you know, he knows the Bills better than anyone could have. He just on Kincaid, it was just interesting. I don't know if you saw.
Can I just real quick interrupt? Sorry to interrupt, but so 20 plus years for Mike Shope, and he starts the show last week with his mic muted. Come on, Mike.
Embarrassing. Embarrassing.
Mike rules, dude. Mike rules. I had to jab him there.
We started off with me on a Tuesday saying Happy Wednesday, and then Mike
your stream crashed, and we were like dark talking
stream
about
crashed. Yeah,
it was a draft that happened like 2 weeks ago.
It was all uphill. It was all uphill.
But he feels as though with the Bills, it was like they drafted Kincaid, and for as good as an organization, they don't know how to use him. Now, Kincaid also last year, talk about playing hurt. I have never seen someone more concussed than he was, I think, in that Miami Thursday night game when his head got drilled and he just somehow played like that, like 100% concussed, and he just played through it. But yeah, he was beat up. He's just an interesting name, but I can't help what Mike says. He's like, I just don't know if they know how to utilize him properly.
Right. I wouldn't take him when I already took Travis Kelce. That's for sure. Like he's in the range for me where it's like, if you're just double tapping upside plays or doing yin and yang and going with a safe guy or whatever, like then I'm in on it. Like for me, if I get this far, I'll go Kincaid Henry, and like Henry will be my safe guy and Kincaid will be my upside guy. You just have to have, I mean, again, you're betting that they're implementing something this year, because if they don't, then it turns out that they just missed on the pick and he's just not as good as everyone thought he was, and that absolutely could happen as well.
Coop, real quick before I go to Terp, just quick thoughts on Aiyuk and what his deal is, because I've seen a lot of stuff that's like, you know, pro Aiyuk and his value, and then there's also rightfully like the downers who are like he might start on the pup and he was awful last year. And where are you at on Brandon Aiyuk?
I expect him, based on a lot of the stuff I've seen. Again, none of us boys are doctors here, so
I can put on my doctor hat though when I want to on these shows.
But I do follow some doctors on Twitter, and they take it very seriously with the PT and the rehab and stuff. And from what I'm seeing, October, November is kind of the timeline, right? Which creates a nightmare for big tournaments, right? Especially some of the ones here where it gets narrowed down. Like, so this one at week 12, does it get narrowed down to 4 teams, or is that?
Yeah.
Yes. So like, right. So like, you got to think about that, where it's like 13. Some of these you have more leeway.
Week 13.
13. Yeah.
13,
so after 12.
And then 15 through 17 are the championship.
Yeah. So you have to remember that it's like sometimes those, like, you know, like he might never really have an impact on your team. Mm-hmm. Where he's really going to have a huge impact is this team uses 2 tight ends. They gave Luke Farrell a boatload of money. He is going to play. They use a fullback, right? This is not a 3 wide receiver set team. So when Aiyuk returns, somebody is going to be a part-time player. I imagine for a game or two, it's going to be Brandon Aiyuk. But one of those 3 guys, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Parasol, Brandon Aiyuk, is going to end the season as a part-time player. Barring an injury, I mean, that's just the scheme. That's the way they set it up. That's why they're willing to trade away Deebo Samuel. They you can't find snaps for Luke Farrell and Kyle Juszczyk without taking someone off the field, and it's never going to be George Kittle. It's never going to be Christian McCaffrey. So, that's the reality. And honestly, that whole situation leads me to not have a lot of Ricky Parasol. I do worry that down the stretch, it's going to be Jennings and Aiyuk. And I could absolutely there are arguments for Jennings to be the odd man out. There's arguments for Aiyuk coming off the injury to be the odd man out. But you just got to know the bets you're placing. One of those guys, they're not just going to get to that point in the season and say, hey, thanks for playing, Farrell, and we're just going to use 3 wide receiver sets. That would be crazy, right? So somebody's got to be odd man out. Who do you guys think?
I mean, the thing that's weird about Aiyuk is he looked horrible last year, and all the metrics that he was horrible. However, he was also a couple of like Brock Purdy going blind and missing him wide open from having way better numbers, reasonable, despite how horrible he looked, having some fine performances. Like that Rams game when he was open by 30 yards for a 50-yard, there was multiple moments like that, and also just drops, and you can't help but wonder what he was doing when he was holding out. Just the timeline's worrisome because let's say we go with hedge it late October, but then it's also coming off the ACL. You're not 100%. There's that warm up period. So but 11th round Aiyuk, maybe he's motivated, he gets back to what he was, and then maybe he's hitting 80, 90%. He probably won't be 100% maybe this year, but then he's hitting 80, 90%. Could be a go-to target for Purdy come those playoff rounds, championship rounds, and then it's if you make it, 11th round, I think it's worth the risk. Terp, I'm intrigued to hear what you think, though.
Yeah, that's the thing.
10th round or higher, I'm in. I'll take that shot to, like you said, try to hopefully hits a playoff roster, on a guy that's very, low owned type of situation, with a playoff schedule that's pretty good. Anything above that, no matter what, I'm out. I like you said, he's going to miss a ton of games. It's going to be a lot of games that, especially in the FFPC, you have to, everybody wants to win $1 million, but you have to get to that point to get there. So a guy like Brandon Aiyuk, if your roster says draft Brian Aiyuk, go for it. But if you're drafting Brandon Aiyuk as your wide receiver 3 or 4 or something crazy like that, you're setting yourself up a complete disaster because it's just not going to work out. By the time that he's going to be out there and be 80% or 90%, you're dead.
I'll tell you,
of the time.
Your boy Sean's team there, where he started with, because he has Jennings, so not really a good correlation. But if you start with some really safe but maybe not super upside wide receivers, then yes, you're right. Go for guys like that. That's a play.
Brandon Aiyuk would have made sense on that team.
The end of this discussion is pretty simple. George Kittle should be drafted closer, I think, to potentially guys like McBride and Bowers. I think he's probably closer to that group than the next group. I have a really hard time drafting Sam Laporta. And I know that he was playing banged up, and I know that he's a good player and he's capable of touchdowns, but this isn't necessarily the format for a guy that eats on touchdowns. Tight end, you don't get any bonus tight end premium for touchdowns or yards. It's all based
especially on that team.
They might just be too good for their own good, man.
Yeah.
And Coop, tight end question for you while we have you. Someone was asking what you kind of briefly mentioned in our encompassing Bears discussion, but kind of what are you projecting for Colston Loveland, or is it just kind of such an unknown and we're going to need maybe preseason and training camp to kind of decipher what the roles are?
Yeah. So with Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, any bet on them is that they're generational. That's the one bet you're making because in both situations, they have a lot of target competition. They have a lot of competition for the routes that they excel at. Colston Loveland is so damn good at slants. He looks like Eric Decker at times, you know what I mean? But he's obviously much bigger and a much better blocker. This guy is so good at slants, but they have 2 other guys in DJ Moore and Luther Burden that operate out of the slot. They have Cole Kmet operating as the inline tight end. There's a very real possibility that for his first season, he's a 50, 60 snap share guy. And then same thing with Tyler Warren, where he's going to be their inline every down tight end if thing goes right. But Josh Downs is a target hog. I like Michael Pittman. There's people out there that like Alec Pierce, even though he's more like a best ball type guy. Like, we didn't get what we wanted. If things went perfectly according to plan, then Evan Engram doesn't get released, and the Chargers and the Broncos take these two players, and now we're drafting them in like the round, it got too muddied by the lack of an obvious role for Loveland, and the role for Warren is not necessarily ideal for fantasy football. So it pains me to say, because I did like the whole like be all in on the rookie train that we got the last couple of years, because people have kind of been denying them. But I think we might be returning back to the old a little bit, where it's like these guys are going to have to earn their target shares. It could be tough. Could be tough.
Terp, question for you from KT, and I feel like I'm going to direct this one to you because you've discussed it many times on this show. He essentially says, how do you guys feel taking running back, receiver, quarterback from the same team, so stacking? He says he feels like it's a lose-lose unless a team blows up every week, which is highly unlikely. Can you compare stacking and your thoughts on it? Obviously, I assume you're pretty pro for it in a best ball format, but what are your thoughts on stacking? How do you handle it in a redraft format, weekly managed like the FFPC Big Gorilla?
I just don't like it. I love stacking. I stack in every league, no matter what, if I have the opportunity to. There's never going to be a chance that if I don't see an opportunity to do it, that I'm not going to do it. I'm obviously not reaching and all that stuff, but I just don't see the value of doing it how he did it with. Let's just forget the Mayfield and all that craziness. With Barkley, he was perfect last year, literally perfect. What did that mean? Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown didn't pay off the value that they were getting drafted. So you got to bet on one. If you're in these formats, you're betting on Saquon Barkley to just do what he did last year, or you're betting on the opposite and you're betting on maybe they start throwing the ball more. They're in a lot more games where the game script's not perfect. I will stay away from doing that. I just feel like on a couple teams last year, I had Saquon Barkley and I had Devonta Smith. And yeah, it works out every once in a while, but there's also a time where Barkley goes nuts. They go up big and Devonta Smith has 2 for 30. And then what are you doing then? You have a dead roster spot in a tournament you're trying to win at the end. It's just not a recipe for success for me. I'm not saying it can't work. There's obviously plenty of like the Lions, for instance. You're drafting Jahmyr Gibbs and you get Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's plenty of avenues for them to both get there, but it's a flawed system for me, and it's not something I'll do.
Right. It has to be, the conditions have to be perfect, and I think it does have to be a very strong pass catching back. That, because we've seen that happen. Like, you need super highly consolidated targets. Yeah. If you can paint a picture for me, Terp, where there's the running back is the second target on the team, then all of a sudden now I'm like, okay.
The Lions is that picture. Like you look at certain pictures where you could paint it, the Lions are that picture.
The best example from previous years would be the Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara years, where it was like Kamara was getting 100 targets and Drew Brees was getting all the points, and Kamara wasn't rushing for 1,000 yards. Like if you were to take a better passer and put him on the Jets, then I could see a world where I'm taking Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall. But like, have you guys seen the props for Justin Fields this year?
No, I haven't.
No.
Real bad, dude. They're basically betting. MGM is basically betting on him to fail. His passing yard prop is 2,450 yards. His passing touchdown prop is 14.5. There's nobody on there under 3,000.
Vegas always knows.
It's like they're
Garrett Wilson's a tough spot this year. I love Garrett Wilson, but like he's going to get
Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson. There's someone always inherits the mantle, right? DJ Moore had it in Carolina through Chicago for the longest time. Now it's like Garrett Wilson. Like, what if this guy just ever gets a real quarterback?
Right. Yeah. Like we said, Terry McLaurin was QB proof for years. Then he gets a real QB and he scores 13 touchdowns, and it's like, oh, maybe you do still need the quarterback to like really get the numbers. Like goes from 4 touchdowns to 13. Like, okay, so maybe the quarterback does matter a little bit.
Yeah. Coop, I just want to ask you. I'm just going to keep hammering you with tight end questions here late. Good. Team 3, they took Evan Engram, who we talked about extensively, but then they draft 3 more, but all really interesting names. So Mason Taylor, obviously Loveland and Warren were the highlights of the draft, but I mean, some teams I'm sure had Mason Taylor right up there with them. Theo Johnson had one of the greatest, combine athletic testing performances ever. And then Terrence Ferguson goes to the Rams, which is a really interesting spot. Obviously, we saw it last year with Blake Corum, but I mean, this was, I believe, the first pick they had this year's draft was Terrence Ferguson. So I want your thoughts on those 3 names because those are all really interesting tight end names to me.
Yeah, I love Terrence Ferguson. I'm going to start with Ferguson because I love him in Dynasty. He's my Dynasty tight end 3. Obviously, when tight ends go in the first round, you got to respect that. But like, I have him ahead of Taylor and ahead of Arroyo, who I also like. Mm-hmm. But with Ferguson in redraft, the problem you run into, again, I know you were away for a second, Turp, but who are the top 2 pass catchers on the Rams?
Not somebody that he's ever getting past.
Yeah, Puka and Devontae.
Puka and Devontae Adams.
Yes.
And so you could say Kyren Williams is
you could say Kyren is maybe.
So you hit
there's plenty of money.
And Higbee's still there.
And he's got to pass Higbee. That's the thing. So he's got to get past Higbee. If he gets past Higbee, he now becomes Cade Otton, right? Where it's like you look at Cade Otton, similar scheme, right? We talk about it's the same scheme from McVay over there. If one of the 2 wide receivers is hurt, now he becomes the top 2 target, but kind of too many hurdles there. Theo Johnson, for me, the problem I run into with him is that like the way they used him, the profile, as simple as I can say it, too much pass blocking. Like they too many times looked at him, in my opinion, and said, we're going to call a pass play here. You're going to stay in and block, right? And that to me is scary, especially because Malik Neighbor is going to get 150 targets, which means you have one other guy on that team capable of possibly, if things go exactly right, having difference making or startability. You know, it probably is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson. Darius Slayton doesn't really excite me, but like I just don't see a world where Russell Wilson for the first time in his career really starts like dialing in on the tight end, or you know, it's a tough situation. Mason Taylor to me is a guy that has the best opportunity, right? What we look for, it's like you start doing the math. Garrett Wilson, yes. Breece Hall, yeah, maybe 100 targets. But I don't know, probably not actually.
Not another receiver to worry about.
No, Alan Lazard, Josh Reynolds. It's like
Malachi Corley. I mean,
yeah, Malachi Corley wasn't getting great reviews.
Don't care, right? So like that's the path. The problem with him is that he also you're betting on him to be used differently than he was used at LSU. Because at LSU he was 70% of a snap inline guy, 16.9% pass block guy, and people say, oh, they took him in the second round. He has to be a pass catcher. Well, Drew Sample was picked in the second round. You know, Darnell Washington was picked in the third. It's like teams value blocking. There's a world where he's not necessarily the starter even because they have Jeremy Ruckert and our guy Stone Smart, who obviously rules. So it's like, you know, but so there's of those guys, he has the best upside case. For me, if I'm taking an Evan Engram, I might also like Evan Engram plus Mason Taylor is the perfect yin-yang tight end. You got a safe guy in Engram, you got your upside guy in Taylor. I see no reason to circle back for more than that, to be honest, even in a tight end premium, unless it's somebody that also has unique upside, like maybe I don't know. Let's play the game. You know, like guys like
Juwan Johnson.
Juwan Johnson just got a bunch of money. We don't know what Rashid Shaheed's going to look like. Who knows? You know, Brandon Cooks is.
We don't know who's playing quarterback. Like,
let's do that, Cooper. I think we did it with you. We were trying to do who's the tight end drafted outside of the top 18 who finishes top 5. And yeah, I'll someone here, it was me, said Jonnu Smith. So there we go.
Dude, you nailed it, bro. And the thing with Jonnu Smith is he's got that highly consolidated target share. And if he can just surpass one of those guys, which he did, there it is, you know. So who's the name here? And I think likely is always kind of an easy one. So who's a guy outside of from Dallas Goedert on? Turp, let me start with you, and then I want to hear yours, Coop. Who's the tight end who has the best chance of finishing top 5? Turp, is it Juwan Johnson, like you just said?
This deep, yes. I mean, he's just a guy that, you know, if you look at all, I mean, Chris Olave is, you know, you could paint a picture that, you know, one hit he's done. Shaheed, I mean, we don't know who's playing quarterback. If this, you know, the rookie's any good, they're not going to be a good team. They're going to be throwing the ball a ton. It's in the range of possibilities. Taysom Hill, whose name we love in these streets, probably won't be a factor this year. So, I mean, if you look, Tyler Conklin's another name that I talked about earlier, and I know I'm a stan, but it's in the range of possibilities, like of possible, you know, it could work out. I'm not on Terrence Ferguson. I actually like Tyler Higbee more than Terrence Ferguson. I am not, you know, pumping that. He's going to get hyped up in these drafts. It's only going to take one or two, you know, big preseason, you know, training camp, you know, highlights from him. He's going to start moving up into uncomfortable territory. I'm a Cade Otton guy, but there's just no path that I see that being any way possible where that pays off. You know, if in best ball, it makes a little bit more sense because there's a possibility there could be some spikes. But I I could never draft Kate Otten redraft. Ever.
Never again.
Gesicki,
It's too crowded now. It's too crowded,
Yeah.
bro. Because like
Noah,
even if
Noah
wide receivers are
Gray,
there.
guy that like, if
I was
you
gonna say
really-
Noah Gray's interesting if Kelsey keeps wearing down. Like
it still doesn't make a lot of sense though with the mentality of can he be a top 2 or target guy on the team?
No.
I
Tight
want
end
to say
deep is
I want to say
ugly.
something right now that I've yet to say on the air because I'm scared. But what did Isaiah Likely really do last year that guys like Noah Gray and Austin Hooper didn't do?
He had a sick week 1.
Yes, very cool.
He got
week.
drafted. Okay,
Yeah,
look,
very cool.
Third
week one.
round.
We're
That
gonna
was
go
my-
back. We're gonna go back to Isaiah Likely because I say this and I say it every year. Drafting after the first game or the second game in Vegas, I'm not sitting here saying you're gonna win anything, but you have such an advantage of some of these guys who just love that week wipe. Isaiah Likely, I'm pretty confident if I remember correctly, went in the first round.
No,
some drafts?
it was late second. Was
Second,
late
sorry.
second. It was
Sorry,
like that
I
was
misspoke. The
that was
second
my
round.
That was my like welcome to Vegas. Like I had
We
my
talked
first
about
year
this 'cause
working
both-
was Rams Bills. Then we had what was the other one? Terp the year after that. It was Chiefs Lions. So like there was nothing
Terrible.
crazy.
Like,
and then
nothing
last
major.
year's games, I was like, oh, this is what Terp has been telling me about. Isaiah Likely is going the second. At the time, it was like Saquon first overall. Like, this is not gonna
Joe in the chat has the number 1 though. Peyton Manning that 1 year. Right?
He was number 1 in
Kareem
every
Hunt?
draft, and there was team.
Kareem
And he had
Hunt?
the best season ever, drawn dead. Every
Yeah.
team that drafted him number 1, drawn dead.
Kareem
Even with
Hunt
the
was a
season
big
he had,
one.
which was
Clyde.
insane.
Another draft where
Clyde,
Clyde
your boy.
Edwards-Helaire wasn't drafted. Like, there we go. I'm winning. I've
Yeah, that's
won.
your boy.
I have defeated him. I
Yeah.
hate him so
Those
much.
games present, especially like if you look at the draft boards. I remember doing some drafts on Saturday after it was all over. last
Jaden
year.
Reed last year, like
Second,
third,
he got
fourth
moved,
round.
Yeah,
Second,
he got
yeah.
moved up. He was in the second round of some drafts. That's just
Mhm.
it's. You just hope you don't get stuck next to them in week 1, and if you do, you still have a chance. But you just hope you avoid that craziness because if you do, it's the value that falls in these drafts are just insane.
Yeah, we got some great ones. Eagles Cowboys is going to have a lot. Like, how does Pickens look? If
Chargers,
CD
Chiefs,
has
I
a
mean-
blow up, and then Chiefs. How does their receiver room shake up? Maybe who knows what Pacheco is going to look like? And then the Chargers, obviously, like what if Hampton has a huge game? Like he's going.
What if Trey Harris does something? What if Jake Ferguson against the Eagles does something? You're going to see guys do stupid things
I can't
live
wait.
that they don't do. It's the
What if
best
Jalen
thing.
Royals pops a 70-yard touchdown?
If Rashi Rice, he playing the Rashi Rice role, or maybe they ease Rashi in. That could
There's a
easily
perfect
happen.
example right there. Rashi Rice. Let's just say Rashi Rice has a 30-point night or a 25-point night. He's a top 5 pick.
Yeah,
Not that he doesn't deserve to be, but he's going to be in the top 5. And then you look at guys that are getting him in the third round. It's a hard.
what if Kelsey like has a throwback game just out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden you're like
A guy who
he's
people
good.
don't even talk about in drafts right now. Like,
Yeah. Coop, I want to hear your answer. Then we'll get out of here. Who is your guy outside of the top 18 that you're like?
so you
top
got
of
my
upside?
my advice to everybody: use your imagination, right? And the biggest thing I think, especially if you're somebody that tweets and does all that, is take your negative energy and turn it into positive energy. Like I'll give an example right here. I keep hearing people say that Cooper Kupp is washed. If you believe that's the case, what are you doing about it? Right? Because this team's they drafted a fullback, Robbie Utes. They're gonna use 2 tight end sets. They're gonna use that's what Clint Kubiak wants to do. It's gonna be 2 wide receivers and then 1 pass catching tight end. Like there's opportunity there. Okay. The Elijah Arroyo pick there, a good one. If Noah Fant is the guy, I mean, I hate to say it, but like the path for Johnny Smith to get to where he did for him to break out looks not that dissimilar from Noah Fant. In fact, Noah Fant has better stats through his age 27 season right now than Johnny Smith had. And, at 27, Travis Kelce didn't have his first 1,000-yard season until he was 27. Zach Ertz didn't until he was 28. So, like, there's a real possibility.
Undrafted.
Well, that's the thing is, like, at the very end, like, if you with your last couple picks, you could take Elijah Arroyo and Noah Fant and have the starting tight end for the scheme that produced George Kittle, that produced the season for Johnny Smith last year. It's the same scheme, right? Like it's not the same exact scheme, but like we all know that like Clint Kubiak went to work with Shanahan, 2023 pass game coordinator. When he left and went to the Saints last year, the guy that played the second most snaps in that backfield after Alvin Kamara was fullback Adam Prentice. And that's how we got the high consolidation amongst Olave and Shaheed, right? And things were looking really good there. But that also brings the tight end in as a locked-in, high consolidated top guy. So I think that's a spot where you could have that Johnny Smith thing. And if you don't like Cooper Kupp, then who is going to be the second target, right? So that's one spot. Chigakonkwo, who team 4 is back on the map with a couple good picks. I know we were giving him a hard time earlier, but
Yeah.
Chigakonkwo, right? I look at a team like that. Calvin Ridley, sure, top guy. Who's the second pass catcher on that team? Is it Tyler Lockett? Is it Aidan Liquorie? Well, he got him too, right? So he's placing those bets on who could be top 2 targets of the team. Maybe they can't support 2 pass catchers, but maybe they can, right? If the Panthers, if you think Tet McMillan face plants or you don't like Xavier Legette because he jumps every time he catches the football, and you think Adam Thielen's old, well, why can't Jatavian Sanders pop in and do a little something?
That's
maybe
a good name. That's a name I like.
That's what I'm saying. He's like, there's no difference between like JT Sanders, Harold Fannin. Those guys could eventually turn into the Hunter Henrys and Zach Ertz.
Mm-hmm.
They're very good route runners, very good hands, short area guys. And then like the deepest possible guys that probably don't need to be drafted, but you need to think about as like handcuffs. What happens if the starter gets hurt? Like
Ben Sinnott.
Ben Sinnott is absolutely one of the 2 names. Can you guess the other one? The other one's tougher to guess. Very deep. Converted wide receiver into a tight end. He's tight end 2 on his team as a pass catcher.
Johnny Wilson.
Ooh, see
I was thinking I was really looking at the Eagles, but I don't think it's an Eagle.
I was thinking converted receiver.
He's behind a very high end tight end. Probably the deepest guy.
Lions. Go ahead, you can say it.
Yeah.
Elijah Higgins. If Trey McBride goes down, Tip Ryman is not going to. So like guys like John Bates and Tip Ryman, they're going to keep their role and they're going to maintain their inline blocking tight end role. They get leapfrogged by Ben Sinnott. So Ben Sinnott last year, we saw in the one game where Zach Ertz left with a concussion, his huge spike in routes from the slot. That told us that he's the backup pass catcher. And John Bates is just like, he's Michael Pruitt. He doesn't matter, right? He's not even on our radar. Tip Ryman's the same thing. He's a mauler. He's a blocker. He doesn't matter to us. In the one game that McBride was banged up, Elijah Higgins did step in and run a bunch of routes. Did he do anything? No.
No.
You got to be.
I remember because I had him in a couple spots.
Higgins had some moments though. It wasn't anything.
He scored just as many touchdowns as Trey McBride.
Yeah, and he had the sick one on
That's
the
scary
when he scrambled like 50 yards in the backfield and he hit Higgins in the back of the end zone. So.
That's guys like that. Like there's Elijah Higgins and Juwan Johnson, converted wide receivers that are never going to block. And if things break the right way with guys getting hurt, they could, now you just have these guys where it's like, hey, you know what? This is the best wide receiver we have left. It's entirely possible. Like if Trey McBride goes down, it's Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. And now you have this role in the offense that's built for basically a big slot receiver, and it becomes Elijah Higgins. It's like things like that it's like you got to, you got to be just kind of thinking like, what are the paths? What are the outs? But there are guys like Chigakonkwo or JT Sanders that could do it with no injuries at all.
That's actually a good point. What if Bowers does go down? Like get named Michael Mayer.
Right.
I mean, it's a tough story to tell yourself, right? Drafting and like when it comes to this stuff, like if I'm drafting Michael Mayer, he's probably gonna be a free agent pickup in most of these leagues. But if you're in a best ball league and you have a deep roster and you want to take a shot in the 20th round on like a 3 tight end build, you could do worse and hope something goes haywire, maybe gets traded. I don't ever wish for injuries on anybody, but if the range of outcomes of one of these top tight ends get traded, he's probably the best guy that's out there right now.
And there's stuff with your like imagination, Coop, as you're saying that you don't even think of. Like when I was going over why I like Jonnu Smith last year, it was just this guy's a hyper athletic monster, and I like what Mike McDaniel can do with him. It wasn't ever factoring in like, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and then with Tua getting hurt, just their pass catching is going to be beat up and just completely just underwhelming, and Johnny will kind of step into that void. So you never know. You never know.
And the crazy thing about the signing of Jonnu is that like they were trying to collect comp picks for Christian Wilkins and Robert Hunt. So when he got released, he became the best available tight end that wouldn't count against their comp picks. So like he just kind of fell right into the perfect situation at the perfect time. I mean, it's like that's how crazy this game is, dude. That's why it's so much fun. Man. It's never going to stop being fun, dude. And I'm never going to say no when you guys ask me to come on here. And I do want to come back on I don't know what the schedule is, but before the end of the summer, because I want to come on
100%. You'll be back.
But here are my requirements. I want to come on Terp has to be drafting.
I like that.
And I want you to draft. Like, you're going to have a huge portfolio already, so I want to see you do something crazy.
I like the craziness. I love it.
Want to see
all right, so we're already booking out. We'll book you out till like a Wednesday in August.
I like that.
Deep August. I want to see Terp.
Are you going to be in Vegas this year?
No, I'm not going to be able to make it out. I got a 2-year-old. I mean, maybe I will.
Terp knows that.
I have a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old.
Okay.
My permission got signed.
I will. Theo keeps trying to get me out there, dude. So he's on tomorrow. Maybe I'll check in with him, dude. I do want to get out
trip.
In and out. Boom. That's it.
Right. I go Wednesday late and I come out of there Friday on the red eye.
Yeah.
In and out.
That I could do. All right,
nothing crazy. Nothing.
Figured out. It is what it is. Eventually, sometime in the near future.
Got to get out there.
I'll be there, dude. Don't worry about me. I'll be out there. I'm so easy. I'm so susceptible to peer pressure. If one of you guys says, "Come on," I'll probably go.
I'm gonna have Theo get tomorrow. I'm gonna be hopping.
Come on. Okay.
Just every day sending you a text. Coop, we appreciate you as always for coming on. We absolutely love having you. You'll be back in August. We're already set the calendar. Back in August, Terp will be drafting. Terp, you have a busy schedule. Terp is on tomorrow on Insider Access with Balky, Theo Greminger, Best Ball Tournament. Theo's drafting live. Terp maybe is. And then we'll be back next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Every Wednesday in June, we will be on here live covering this month. It's Big Gorilla Drafts. A B-Bag with Toba is on next week, 1st and 15 zone. Back-to-back winner of, now it's 2 name changes ago.
Still crazy to ever actually say that out loud.
Yeah, back-to-back winner. We're having him on, and then Scott Barrett from Fantasy Points and Nelson Souza from FTN Fantasy to close out the month. So, Coop, you let it off. You were Shohei in the number 1 spot, just knocking it out of the park for our June coverage.
Banana shirt and everything, bro.
Yeah. Love it.
Let's go.
Love
Big Gorilla, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. Active chat. We love that. Great questions. Terp, you'll be back tomorrow with Balky on Insider Access, and then we will see you guys next Wednesday, 9 p.m. with Abib to cover a Big Gorilla draft again. Thanks, guys. Happy drafting.
See you guys.